Hi, my name is Agna, and today we will be going through ISO SAE 21434, Clause 15 overview. And Clause 15 talks about threat analysis and risk assessment methods. So, let's begin. So let's take a look at Clause 15 overview. So if we take a closer look at scope, you'll see that it's mentioned that the methods defined in this clause are generic modules that can be invoked systematically and from any point in the life cycle of an item or component. This means that various activities or rather methods can be used throughout the different phases of the life cycle. Now, if we take a look at objectives, here it says we have to determine effective methods for evaluating threat scenarios. Now let's take a look at main activities. And here we have even 7 of them. The first one is asset identification, followed by threat scenario identification, impact rating, attack path analysis, attack feasibility rating, risk value determination, and lastly, we have risk treatment decision. So all of these mentioned activities will be analyzed more in depth separately in the deep dive section. Now let's take a look at some of the key concepts here. So in clause 15, all in all, we have 17 provisions. And just as a reminder, provisions are considered to be permissions, recommendations, and requirements. Now, if you take a closer look at this overview, here you will see the previously mentioned activities, which we have 7. But in terms of work products, we have 8 of them, because the first activity, which is asset identification, it actually has 2 work products. Now let's take a look at those work product objectives. So the first one is damage scenarios. Here we have to identify damage scenarios. The following is assets with cybersecurity properties. Here we would need to identify assets with cybersecurity properties. The third one is threat scenarios. Here we have to simply identify threat scenarios. Number 4 is impact ratings with associated impact categories. Assess damage scenarios referring to impact categories. Here in brackets we have SFOP, so S stands for safety, F stands for financial, O stands for operational, and P stands for privacy. Then we have attack paths. This means that we would have to analyze threat scenarios to identify attack paths. Then number 6 is attack feasibility ratings. This means that we would have to determine attack feasibility rating for each attack path. Then for number 7, we have risk value. So here we would need to determine risk value for each threat scenario. The last one that we have here is risk treatment decisions. Here we would need to determine risk treatment options for each threat scenario. Understandably, it may all sound a bit confusing and you may hear a lot of keywords throughout this course, such as threat scenarios, attack paths, assets, damage scenarios, and so on. And I highly recommend you to familiarize yourself. And you can do that if you go to the Implementing a CSMS course, and at the very top you will find terms and abbreviations. Let's take a look at implementation of Clause 15. So under requirements, we have teams, departments often responsible include the TAR team and the cybersecurity and or engineering team. And under challenges, we have cross collaboration between various teams, keeping up to date with the latest threats, and a high level of expertise. Then, if we move on to potential risks, you might notice that these are the same risks that were mentioned in Clause 9, which are delay in completing the TAR process, which may result in missed opportunities for risk mitigation and inadequate preparation for emerging threats. The second one is security breaches or incidents. And lastly, delayed responses to new threats or changes in the threat landscape increase security risks. So it's safe to say that if we overlook a major threat or vulnerability, there might be substantial financial losses and damage to reputation. Now finally, let's take a look at the provisions and work products overview. So the first few work products are damage scenarios and assets with cybersecurity properties. The first requirement states that we have to identify damage scenarios. The second one says that we have to identify assets whose compromise leads to a damage scenario. Then we have work product number 3, which is threat scenarios. So here we have requirement number 3, which states that we have to identify threat scenarios. Then under work product number 4, which talks about impact ratings with associated impact categories, we have requirement number 4, which says assess damage scenarios against potential adverse consequences in the impact categories of SFOP. So once again, SFOP stands for safety, financial, operational, and privacy. Then requirement number 5 says that we have to determine the impact rating of a damage scenario for each impact category. And the categories are severe, major, moderate, negligible. Then we have requirement number 6, which says derive safety impact ratings from ISO 26262. So this standard specifically talks about safety, so therefore we have to derive safety impacts resulting from this specific standard. The requirement number 7 says that we have to perform further analysis if a damage scenario results in an impact rating and an argument that can be made that every impact of another impact category is considered less critical. Then we have work product number 5, which talks about attack paths. So we have recommendation number 8, which says analyze threat scenarios to identify attack paths. And next up, we have recommendation number 9, which says associate an attack path with the threat scenarios that can be realized by the attack path. Then we have work product number 6, which talks about attack visibility ratings. So we have recommendation number 10, which says determine the attack visibility rating for each attack path. Then recommendation 11 says define the attack visibility rating based on one of the existing approaches. Recommendation 12 says determine the attack visibility rating based on existing core factors if an attack potential based approach is used. Then recommendation 13 says determine the attack visibility rating based on exploitability metrics if a CVSS-based approach is used. Then followed by recommendation 14, which says that we can determine the attack visibility rating based on evaluating the predominant attack vector of the attack path if an attack vector-based approach is used. So if you notice, we have 3 different approaches mentioned here, like attack potential-based approach, CVSS-based approach, and attack vector-based approach. If you're not familiar with any of these approaches, don't worry, they will be explained more in depth in the following sections. Then we have work product number 7, which talks about risk values. So recommendation 15 says we can determine the risk value for each threat scenario, and followed by recommendation 16, which says evaluate the risk factor value of a threat scenario between 1 and 5. Lastly, we have work product 8, which talks about risk treatment decisions. So we have recommendation 17, which says determine risk treatment options for each threat scenario. If you're not familiar with the TAR process, a lot of the things will be explained in the deep dive section. And also, if you're still curious about having more in-depth TAR knowledge, just know that we have a few other online TAR courses available, and we also provide instructor-led TAR courses. So thank you for being with us.
If you are not yet on VSEC, please go to vsec.blockharbor.io. Not only will you find more automotive cybersecurity training content, but there's also real vehicle test benches you can access remotely, automotive cybersecurity capture the flag challenges, automated testing tools, and more. Thank you for your time.